A very good morning to you. Thank you for finding time to be with us today. The show is Frontline Security. My name is Miriam Mugutu, and Dr. Batanga, who is meant to be taking us through this topic today, shall be joining us in a short bit. So as we wait for that to happen, I'll just take us through the headlines this morning, and then we will get on to the topic in a short while. So we start with the headlines here in Kenya. My name is Mira Mugutu, and thank you so much for joining us. A very good afternoon, good evening to you, and thank you for finding time to be with us today. The Star newspaper from Kenya, Baby Pendo, new evidence implicating top cops emerges. That story is on page 4 and 5. Gachagwa's spirited efforts to dislodge Uhuru as Mount Kenya political kingpin. Dr. Rigathi Gachagua has started an aggressive campaign to dislodge retired President Uhuru Kenyatta as the Mount Kenya political kingpin. In the recent weeks, the DP has been on a back-to-back offensive in the vote-rich region, meeting and wooing Uhuru troops in efforts to fill the void created by Uhuru's departure. I don't know if this is what Kenyans wants to hear. Kenyans have a list of so many things that this regime had promised, so they're just crossing their fingers and hoping that in the same spirited effort that will be directed towards solving the current issues that are plaguing Kenyans and some of the urgent matters that needs to be addressed in this country. But I digress for right now. That story is on page 6. Standing tall, proud and dangerous, gone the next minute. That is the building that collapsed yesterday in Kiambu opposite Ruiru police station. We turn our attention now to the Standard newspaper. The maize rebellion. MPs from the Rift are up in arms over government intention to import maize. I'm surprised it took them this long to respond to this GMO, saying move will hurt their constituents who were harvesting their crop at the moment. Clergy demands apology from trade CS over GMO remarks. It will be interesting to see how the government will handle this matter. I think I'll be watching to see that. That story is on page 6 and 13. Winnie promises to champion EAC integration. That story is on page 7. State agencies defy austerity measures. You'll find that on the business pages on the Standard. Page 20, NASA's Orion arrives in the moon. You'll find that on page 23. Saka shines in England, a route of Iran. That will be on page 36. Of loose tanks and lessons for Ruto and loyalist. You'll find that on page 12. And then Mugo Wairimu, a danger to society who dragged women. Quirk sentenced to 32 years for operating illegal clinic and administering drugs to women with intention to rape. The story is on page 3. The Daily Nation, Ruto plots to take full control of Parliament. Having won over 10 of the 12 independent lawmakers, Kenya Kwanza strategists see the possibility of bridging the 44-member gap to a two-thirds majority that would guarantee President Ruto's coalition an easy time in passing key legislation to support his agenda, as well as powers to approve or reject changes to the constitution. The story is on page 4 and 5. 29 years in jail for man who preyed on patients. The story is on page 10. Beyond politics, are GMO safe to eat? We dig up the experts' views on the controversial matter of genetically modified organisms that has engulfed the country following decision to import GMO maize. And then the story is on page 3. Kenya's big delegation to climate conference. According to the United Nations provisional list of the people who attended the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, Kenya sent about 386 participants, the second largest delegation in Africa. The Kenya delegation was the fourth largest globally for the world event that had 33,000 delegates. The story is on page 7 on the Daily Nation. 2022 FIFA World Cup, Senegal fall to Dutch opponents in Qatar. Senegalese forward Crepin Diatta fights for the ball with Netherlands defender Dali Blind yesterday during the Group A match of the 2022 FIFA World Cup at the Tumama Stadium in Doha. The Netherlands won 2-0. Okay. There you go. So that is what we have on the local newspapers here in Kenya. So now I'd like to just bring us the headlines of some of the regional newspapers. Newsday from Zimbabwe. EU pours 5.9 million US dollars for 2023 polls. And then the Herald, Zimbabwe, still from Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe EU link 46 million US dollars finance deals. And then just below that, Buy Zimbabwe campaign tasked to unlock growth potential of local businesses. Okay, and then Vice appoints first female air vice marshal. Very well, I guess the president appoints first female vice marshal there in Zimbabwe. And the Daily News, still from Zimbabwe, power cuts are costing Zimbabwe big as consumers, real companies bleed badly. And then ZANU-PF stamps in rural fortresses. That is what we have. The Namibian from Namibia, SWAPO delegates housed at farms to block temptations. Okay. And court stops sale of Transmib vehicles. And then Zambezi forest under daily threat from illegal timber harvesters. Windhawk observer as with boy pulls out of the DSG race 3 days to Congress. That is what we have. This is from Namibia. Peace is made with enemies, not friends. Again, Gob, that is the president of Namibia. So he's saying peace is made with enemies, not friends. I wouldn't agree more there. The Sowetan from South Africa, painful, but it's the law. I think I'll talk about this later. This was the person who killed Chris Hani, the anti-apartheid leader. And so the person, he was given a life sentence, but he will be released in the next 10 days under parole. And so I saw the widow of Chris Hani protesting that. So I will talk about this, but much later, not right now. Business Day, this is from South Africa. Zuma is unlikely to see prison cells soon. The court ordered for him to go back to prison. He's been talking too much and he's been out on parole, remember. The Citizen from Tanzania, why CCM elections matter before 2025. And the Habari Leo from also Tanzania, umeme vijijini, daraja, jangwani, mambo safi. I will not translate, but that is in Kiswahili. The Nation from Nigeria, why Atiku PDP will lose in 2023 by Kwankwaso. Okay. The Punch also from Nigeria, federal government, domestic airlines, illegal battle kicks off on Thursday. And the New Vision from Uganda, experts advise on tough economy. So that is what we have. And some of the regional newspapers from across the continent of Africa. Right now, I'm joined by Naz Omar from, I guess, London. Omar, a very good morning to you and nice to have you this morning.
Good morning to you too, Punchline Africa. As usual, it's a pleasure to be invited. Thank you very much. How is Nairobi?
Nairobi is okay. It was a bit chilly in the morning, but I see it's a bit sunny now. But the kind of weather that personally I like, when it's too much heat, it's not good, and it's too cold also. I don't like that. So it's just the kind of weather that a city girl like me enjoys and appreciates. But thank you so much. I hope that you've been well. We are also joined by Saxon Svimba from Harare, Zimbabwe. Saxon, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Africa.
All right, Saxon. I don't know if we will be able to work with your connection. It's not very stable.
Okay.
It's not very clear.
Pardon?
Yeah. Are you able to find a location where we can have better reception, please? Okay, so as Saxon works to find a place where we can have better reception, Omar, I don't know if you were listening to some of the headlines that I just went through this morning, and if at all you'd like to pick on something there before we move on to the topic of discussion this morning.
Well, not really. I'll wait for us to move on to the discussion. There's so much to pick on and so much going on. It's mind-boggling and mind-blowing. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. So, of course, this morning we are going to look at oil, and I don't know whether it has been a curse or a blessing. for this continent, but we've seen in countries that particularly enjoy this natural resource, much of it has been accompanied by conflict, and they will not stop. And not just oil and other natural resources that this continent has been blessed with. Some of these conflicts are man-made, some are a lot of them are man-made anyways. It is people fighting, so a lot of them have a lot of external interference underlying tones, and others are just it's just conflict with different underlying driving factors there. So that is what we are going to look at this morning. So perhaps I'll just start by asking a very general question. The oil that we have in this continent, from where you are, Omar, would you say it has been a blessing to this continent before we get into specific countries?
Anything that is given by Mother Nature, I see it to be as a blessing, and it is a blessing from God. But it is up to the continent to realize how to utilize it better for the embetterment of its people. If we take it as country by country, so yes, it is a blessing. Anything that Mother Nature gives you is a blessing. Is that for a reason? We are given what we're given for a reason. We are in this region for a reason, but are we utilizing it to the best of our abilities? And are we being able to put a stop to the external forces, begin with them in the correct way? Those are the questions probably that we need to ask. But yes, it is a blessing.
All right. Thank you so much. And we know that some geopolitical representations of oil in Africa conjure up images of corrupt, sometimes corrupt politicians, disgruntled populations. Like yesterday, I was having a conversation here in the afternoon, and I was just highlighting what they just concluded. I don't want to call them elections, but because I think it was just a formality in Equatorial Guinea, and that is just one of the countries that leads as far as production of oil in this continent is concerned, with a very small population, which if this oil was put into good use, every single person in Equatorial Guinea would live a very wonderful life. But unfortunately, because of poor governance and a lot of corruption, and a country that is being run as if it was a personal enterprise, it has some of the world's poorest populations there. No running water, no electricity, a lot of basic amenities are lacking. And to know that it's just one of the countries that produces a lot of oil here in the continent, if that oil was put in good use, the people in Equatorial Guinea will be living like the people in, I said yesterday, like Kuwait, or these are the Middle Eastern countries that are living well based on the revenue they get from their oil. But that is not the case. So, Saxon, what do you make of this oil that we have in the continent before we get into specifics of some of the countries that have been blessed?
The challenge that we're having is with the oil. Those who are mining oil are conglomerates. They're not local people. So that's why we've got a challenge. And in actual fact, the moment the nation discovers oil, I think you've noticed in the Middle East, it's not stable as long as the companies that are mining are not having their interests safe. Like we'll give an example for African countries. The natural resources are a source of discontent is whoever the power brokers have to benefit from the resources. The moment one doesn't want to give them, they would cause chaos. I think you've noticed in Mozambique, the moment the oil was discovered with the problems of terrorism, Nigeria is the same problem. And the challenge that caused most of this conflict is because we don't have the resources to purify and process the oil. By inviting other players, we're also inviting problems because they are serving their own interest. That's my own take in that we don't own the means We might have the resources, but how to purify and do value addition is the major cause of the conflict. Is foreign players who come in, who serve their own interests, who destabilize so that they loot. Yes, that's my honest opinion.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, Omar, when you look at thank you. When you look at Africa, and then you look at some other countries in the Middle East, we know a lot of these countries are wealthy and are where they are today, like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and others, because of the blessing that is the oil that these countries have. And we've seen how they've been able to use this oil to develop the country, to improve the lives of their people, and they're doing pretty much better compared to, say, the countries that we have here in the continent that have been blessed with the same commodity. Why do you think this is the case?
First, I think in those countries, the style of leadership is not the same as the style of leadership in Africa, in the continent. The way of leadership is absolutely different from the leadership in Africa. And if you look at most of them, the leadership system is per se is a system of it's a one family that is running. It's an anarchy system that is being run in those countries. So first is a different style of leadership. Having that kind of leadership, in a way, it's not good, but in a way, it's a blessing, because you don't have all these different entities and different parties politically fighting to be the ones who would actually have a say in the contract, or manipulate the people and say, oh, this contract that this government has given, it has A and B and C fault. So if we were in government, we would have done better. But at the end of the day, they're all probably looking into enriching themselves. Mm-hmm. So that is the difference between the Horn and those countries.
Okay, the lack of leadership and corruption. But even in countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, we hear of cases of corruption, but I guess as much as that is also there, but I guess they get to look at the interests of their people through the leadership that they've been having and the kind of governance systems perhaps they have as compared to what we have here in the continent. Saxon, I don't know what do you have to say on as far as leadership is concerned? Just
I think most of these countries that I've done well in Middle East, they've got what you call an autocratic system of governance, where there's continuity. The moment they've got that type of governance is the backbone upon which that development is anchored, where there's continuity. Whereas in this part of the world, with the elections, one wants to come in would rather sabotage, or come in would destabilize, or not bring about continuity. And developmental projects are affected by the election cycle. In Qatar, they don't know about having election periods. The monarchy continues. In Saudi Arabia, the family continues, and that actually is help them to maneuver the challenges that come with a changing governance system. And they've noticed how they stick with their principles. Right now, they agree on one thing, they don't change. Why? Because there's continuity in terms of governance. So the governance system is the reason why they develop. We have got in a democratic system where we do every election 4 or 5 years. So no one can plan to continue. The next thing, everything one will be continue with the election. That's why we don't have development. That's my take.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, Omar, I'm sure you were familiar with the ruling that was made at the International Court of Justice at The Hague, there between Kenya and Somalia, and we saw this is not really a conflict, but let me call it a misunderstanding between these two neighboring countries. And I think during even the period of the hearings at the International Court of Justice, it was interesting to note how many other countries who would not let Kenya and Somalia sort out this issue within themselves. We saw countries coming in and taking sides. Others were supporting Kenya, others were supporting Somalia. So the issue of external interference we saw really at play. And when you look at especially these countries that were in support of Somalia, you would discover the level of interest that you have, because Somalia is slowly stabilizing, and that means that there are a lot of opportunities that are likely to open up, because Somalia has been plagued with years of conflict. So this provides an opportunity for a rebuilding, provides an opportunity for industrialization, provides an opportunity for other things to come. And once Somalia is fully stable, it provides a lot of enormous opportunities for anybody who's willing to come and invest and do business in Somalia. So how would you say external interference perhaps plays a part as far as some of these conflicts that we see in these countries that are not just oil rich, but also that have, because a country like Somalia, outside of the oil blocks, they do have other mineral resources that have become a source of attraction to other powers or other countries that are seeking to come and have a stake in it. So how would you speak on external interference and how sometimes it acts in propelling some of these conflicts in these natural resourced countries in Africa? Omar.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, if we hit the nail on the head, basically it's whether it's west, whether it's east. If I might say, the whole of Horn of Africa has become a geopolitical fighting ground for this other nations. And if you look at Somalia, I would say then Somalia is at the bottom of the barrel, because one, it's a country that has not been stable for decades, and with rich in minerals, you can name any kind of minerals is available in Somalia, with the longest shore coastline, that also benefits most of this east and western Saudis, whatever countries, whether it's about the cutting the period of the maritime coastal transportations, shipments for this connecting these countries. And then you come and talk about the oil as well. As you know, Somalia has signed an oil deal with a company recently, but they've not. Villa Somalia have released that yes, they have signed a contract, but they've not released what the details entails. So it's like the people in Somalia have no stake in it, have no say in it, the same way that they did not have a say in who is going to be their president, being elected by, as we know, a member of parliaments who came from the regionals. And how they were elected from those regionals as well is another matter. But the bottom line is external factors are the major problem when it comes to Africa. There's a lot of different entities with the different interests. And if there is no participation in with its own people, if the stakeholders are not consulted, they're not. There is no open process. There is no transparency. It might be a good deal. It might not be a good deal. But as long as there is no transparency, then a room grows for people to propagate their propaganda either way, whether they're against the current government, whether they're against a certain group. That gives a breed. It becomes a breeding ground for propaganda, and who is enabling this? Is it the Western countries, or the countries that are signing this contracts with the Somalia, or is it the actual Somali government that does not want its people to know what are the actual details, which is comes under the freedom of information as citizens, but it's still not there. So it's actually a big problem. And if you look at in recent months, in regards to Al-Shabaab, yes, they have tried to work through that out, something that has not been provided by either the neighboring countries, either the Western countries, Eastern countries, all these countries that have interest in Somalia. They've not come up with a tangible solution for all these years, for over 15 years. The only solution was a containment plan. But at the moment, the people have said, okay, we're up in arms and we're taking the fight to Al-Shabaab from the villages and all that. You can see that has also been interfered with and has been turned. A lot of people have tried to fuel that and turn it and change it into something as militia groups, tribal militia groups, and all this is just people who are benefiting from the instability of Somalia. But then it is actually, yes, it is facilitated by external forces.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Saxon. Speak on the issue of external interference and how much it acts as a catalyst to some of these conflicts in areas that we have these natural resources, especially the oil-rich countries across Africa.
The challenge that we have had, I think, since 1884, when the Berlin Conference was framed on the issue of resource looting, and this has continued in the modern day neo-colonialism. There is we won't have peace as long as we have resources. I think you've noticed Africa has been in need, where they are indebted with a lot of civil wars. And if you check who is behind the civil wars, are interested parties in looting resources. Africa has got in the world with the most natural resources than any other continent. And look, we are the least developed, we are the most destabilized, with the most civil strife. Why? Because in a stable society, you can't loot. But when there's chaos, they say disorder is a more natural state than order for those who want to loot. Because the moment there's chaos, you won't be busy fighting amongst yourselves, so why is to take advantage? So it's the case of having resources. You need to have a strong system, strong security systems to safeguard your resources. And that has been the challenge that Africa has had. And they've noticed, not only Africa, even some Middle Eastern countries have noticed why there's a change in policy between Saudi Arabia and the United States. The issue of human rights started being talked about because Saudi Arabia has shifted allegiance. Why? Because their interests of the West, East to West, everyone is concerned about resources. No one loves us. What we need to do is an aspect of choosing a better devil who is abusing us less. And that's the challenge that we have, issue of resources. That I feel a lot of discontent, civil strife, because the ones with money, they'll come in and sow seeds of disunity. We just need to be united, invest in research, explore our own resources, and develop. And that's the only way we can achieve peace. And you've noticed those nations that had strong leaders that achieved. I can give a good example of Libya. Libya was doing well during the era of Ken Gaddafi. Iraq was doing exceptionally well. And these guys will start talking about human rights and democracy. As the guys to loot the resources. I can give an example of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has got 60 million of natural resources. Look what happened when we took out the land. We imposed an assumption. GR says with 90 million of economic resources. Look how impoverished it is in the case of resources because we can't develop them. There are external effect players who cause the chaos. I think you've noticed evidence documented how CIA, M15 and the French intelligence have been fueling a lot of crises. Like I said, Angola, it was Portugal, Mozambique, it was CIA funded apartheid. And the actual fact is Renamo, which was like stabilizing Mozambique, was created by our former Central Intelligence, Kenny Flower. So we can tell how external forces play a part. Look at West Africa. Most of the coups are funded by the French so that they safeguard their interests. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And we shall look at other factors. But right now, we have been joined by Dr. David Matanga. Doctor, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Miriam. Thank you very much. Good morning in Harare, Saxon, and good morning, my sister Nazi Oma from London. Thank you very much for joining us. And I'm sorry I delayed a bit because I had a few technical hiccups. Thank you very much. This is Dr. David Matanga. Miriam, thank you very much. The topic of oil, the conflicts on the continent of Africa, as Saxon has said, it started a long time ago. Let's look back at what is the history. All of us in all these countries in Africa grew up not knowing that there was oil in the Turkana. We only knew that the Turkana had no food, they don't wear clothes, they don't wear shirt, trouser, they wear their skins, traditional. We have to take them food. We knew in Karamoja, for example, that there was no oil. We didn't know that there was oil in Uganda, in Albertine region, in Hoima, the entire. We didn't know that there was oil in the Albertine region of Congo, the other side of Congo. 2 billion barrels estimated of oil. We just learned about this oil when people started talking about changing diversification of resources, of income earning projects, is when oil sprang up. But these guys knew about oil in 1884 when they did demarcate and partition Africa. I agree fully with Saxon when he said the colonialists knew where the oil was. We didn't know where the oil was. It is on our telling us in piecemeal. They are telling us in piecemeal. It is here, it is there. I was researching on the conflict of DRC Congo. Believe me or not, I discovered that the conflict is there because of the oil on the region, in the part of the serious thing why everybody is going for Congo and telling us that you don't want to drill that oil out of the Albertine region of the Congo side. The Secretary of State for America for Foreign Affairs came to Congo and announcement that the on the Albertine region. Now, looking at all this, every part of Africa where there's a conflict, Somalia, for example, I am reliably told Somalia has been kept in a constant conflict because of the rock that joins Saudi Arabia and the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa. Because if Somalia stabilizes, this is exactly a theory that I'm still investigating further, that if Somalia stabilizes and starts drilling the oil in their own region, there won't be oil in Saudi Arabia. So there are conflicts that are being fueled. That's why you see Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and different types of militia that will help the government stronger, but militias that will help their interests. So oil has become an area. Oh, I lost you there, Miriam.
Yeah, your internet has a bit of a problem, but we can get you now.
Oil has become an area of discontent. It creates conflicts. In Nigeria, it has created a very big internal and external conflict of the Ogoni area. You know, Ken died because of that oil, the pollution that is on in around southeastern Nigeria on the waters. You have seen the people fighting, drilling their own types of oil out of the ground, taking it from the pipelines. It is a source of conflict on the African continent. And therefore, I submit that, yes, conflicts have come as a result of a distribution of this black gold, which is discovered. A conflict is brewing between the European Union and the government of Uganda on the Hoima Mwanza Tanga pipeline. The European Union are saying you can't do that pipeline because it will destroy the ecosystem, the environment, all the way through Lake Victoria and all the way from Hoima. Uganda is saying no. We are going to the refinery and then distill it and bring it back for the consumption of the people of Africa. Now, it has created a conflict between Tanzania. What does that tell you? It tells you that oil still remains a very big source of conflict on the African continent. I submit.
And Doc, as much as we've highlighted a lot of external interference and how that plays into the natural resources and natural resources we have in this continent, and especially the oil-rich countries, but there are also some internal factors that we've seen also play out within the countries and the governments themselves. Like we saw in the long Angola's 26-year old war, the government used resources, according to very credible sources, to sponsor that conflict that was there for 26 years. And also another Century report on South Sudan showed that leaders use the country's oil wealth to get rich and terrorize civilians and sponsor the conflicts that we've seen, the intercommunal conflicts that have been at play in South Sudan. So they use the oil money, and I think President Salva Kiir, when he came here for the national prayers, was it in 2001 or 2020, around there? Remember when he came and he was the guest of honor when President Uhuru Kenyatta was the president, and he did indeed admit that the country is making some revenue from the oil that it has, but a lot of that money has been used in the war. So you wonder, how do you use money in the war when you have people in the refugee camps that money is supposed to be helping? So just these two cases, the government itself is using the money to also sponsor.
You are right. You are right in the sense that internal conflicts also occur as a result of distribution of these resources. Indeed, 100% correct. The distribution of resources internally of oil. For example, the oil in our country, Uganda, has already been sold out when it hasn't come out of the soil. And then Nazir will tell you that the one of Somalia is already done. It has been done. It has been dusted. Some people have cut deals. I think, let me leave Nazir. I don't know whether Nazir has talked to you about it. If Nazir is around,
yes,
yes,
I am here. But there was an interesting point that you mentioned, and since the coup 27 took place, I wanted to a little bit go back onto that point, if you don't mind, Dr. David, and it's the point where you say that there is a problem between the EU and Uganda in regards of that pipeline, and what we see is the double standards of caring about the environment when it comes to African development, but then when it comes to the Western or Eastern countries, the industrialization and the pollution is we are told that we are giving money to offset the O2 emissions, but if we want to do development, it's another case. It's a case of we are not being environmentally friendly, and for you to bring that topic was actually very interesting. If we look at what is happening now in Ghana in regards to their cocoa trade with the West and how they've handled that, I would actually congratulate the Ghanaian government, because they were told you have to pay money if you want to. When they say they're not selling it at whatever issues that they could not get along and agree into the how they were selling it and at what profit was Ghana getting it. So Ghana has ganged up with another African country, and they're told you have to pay money to offset emissions if you want to produce the cocoa and processing in Ghana. And this is something that we see is replicated in Africa when it comes to development. So we are caught in between rock and a hard place as a continent. But I think if we take the boldness of Ghana, I think we could get somewhere. Yes, these things are already being bought. Deals have been done behind closed doors. If we go to Villa Somalia's official website, or whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on any other platform, all you can see is the company that they've signed the deal with. And this is the same company that the deal was signed with previously when the previous regime was there during electioneer period, and it was cancelled because there were no deals were supposed to be done during electioneer period. But the same company has resurfaced again, and it's the same company that the Somalian government has signed the oil deal with. Now they're telling us we have changed the original deal and made it better. But then if you ask for the details, they're not there. So yeah, it's absolutely chaotic. So one is our own doing, and the one that comes to the realization that he wants to do better for his people in this deal is not working for Africa, such as Uganda, or such as Ghana, then you're hit by their environmental issues.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
It's very interesting. Hannah, you bring in a point that we have seen. When these people are doing their project anywhere, environmental issues don't arise. Mm-hmm. But when Africa is doing a project that is going to be equated to theirs, mm-hmm, environmental problems come.
And something else, Doc, that Omar has underscored, and thank you so much for that point. We know they just concluded COP27, and there was an agreement of lowering the emissions to at least 1.5 degrees Celsius, something that was agreed upon last year. Remember, just 23 countries out of the 193 are the ones who actually in writing agreed and submitted their commitment to that. So a lot of these countries who are now even making noise over this Uganda pipeline matter are countries that have refused to commit to reducing these dangerous emissions to the agreed 1.5 degrees Celsius. And as much as COP27, there was a bit of what seems to be a win after they agreed to create the loss and damage fund to help these countries that are greatly affected, Africa being one of the continents in that. But they have refused. They skated around the issue of reducing these dangerous emissions that are causing a lot of havoc as far as climate change is concerned and the environment. But they have the audacity to come and tell us, now this is not okay because it is not environmental friendly. So the double standards there is astounding.
And if I might just add one more point, Dr. Ari, before you come in, and in regards to that, we have come to the realization, allegedly, this is, I have to actually emphasize on that, we know that Somalia's coastline has been a dumping site for nuclear waste for a long time, and this has even been mentioned by some of the European European parliamentary members. Some of them have pointed this out. This has been pointed out by European scientists who says the fish and the fish in the Somali Sea can feed the whole of Africa, let alone Somalia. But then there's a lot of nuclear waste and dumping waste in those seas. We've seen now that the contract has been increased for them to be patrolling the shores of Somalia. But at the same time, there's a new issue that has surfaced now. The Norwegian, allegedly, Norwegian company is dumping nuclear waste on Somalia's sea. So you see, when it comes to us, we become a dumping ground, a dumping site. There has been a lot of things on the ground, barrels that have been digged out and during this few months, and you can see it has the signs of nuclear hazard, barrels that have been buried on the ground. We know that there is even the soil in the sea is being sold to Western and Eastern countries. So I wonder, where does this morality comes from when it comes to Africa actually doing the right thing, coming to realization of empowerment and improving and utilizing their natural resources? The O2 emissions becomes an issue, but then we are also at the same time the dumping ground.
I don't know if Saxon is there. Saxon, are you still there? And if at all you can.
Saxon is not there. I'm here.
All right, go
I want Miriam, part of the conflict, and I want Nazi Omar to learn this, to get it. I agree with her 100%. There is plenty of fish on the coastal region areas of Somalia that can feed the whole Africa without us going for hunger, going to look for food handouts and bringing in food that is going to be very damaging. Fresh, nice fish that can feed Africa. Why is it that these guys don't want us to have that fish? Why is it that they make it a constant war around the region? Every effort has been made. Even the war in Afghanistan is now over. They just concluded, went to Doha. It is not this. It is not only even oil. It is not only fish. It is even football itself. Even in football, we don't have an equal share. Even when you go to UN, we don't have an equal share. We are less children of God in the universe. We don't have everything. There's nothing equal with us. So whatever you want to do, it looks like we have been doomed to be told this will be a continent that will have all problems throughout every day, and there is no peace at all. Why haven't they? For example, how do we stop this conflict of Somalia? Let's bring a program which is internationally recognized. We buy refrigerated containers. We buy boats, small boats for fishing. We say for every one refrigerated container of 20 feet container, we want you to bring 400 to 500 AK-47. Return them to us. I tell you, people will start now pointing out at where the war is. Because they will say, if you take this, if you bring that amount of guns, like let's say 200, we give you one container and a fishing boat. You go and fish and store your fish in a refrigerated container. And then when somebody comes from Philippines, he wants to buy fish, you sell that container to that person, and they gives you a refrigerated container. He takes the one you have, he goes with the fish up to their country. There, Somalia, all these younger men you see holding guns will try to find out how they can get access to such a trade. But one of the problems why the conflict in Somalia is still holding on is the younger generation. You'll agree with me, Nazi Omar. They have nothing to say. They have nothing to sell. They have nothing to do. Am I wrong? They stand there, they watch these trawlers coming all the way from Japan, Singapore, Philippines, Norway, Sweden, France, coming to ship in their waters, taking their fish. And they have no jobs. Because even they come with shipping nets or fishing nets that are larger than the ones in Britain, in Europe, in the Indian, in the Atlantic Ocean waters, where shipping is regulated by the European Union regulations. So for me, it's a very serious way of thinking. How do we also end conflicts in the region that have killed our people for time and time again? Let's look at those. It looks like someone has made it very clear that never should Somalia, for example, ever have peace. I've looked at the uniforms. Nazir, I don't know whether you have looked at the uniforms worn by Al-Shabaab. Where do these uniforms come from? Yesterday, Miriam, you saw a clip showing uniforms of worn by M23, and somebody was asking a question. You as an East African who knows all these uniforms, where do these uniforms come from? The question, everybody, people agreed now to go down on paper and sign an agreement and say, let's forget about it. But the truth is, behind all this, wherever you discover oil, look at another country, Chad. Chad has discovered the oil. But if you look at the events that are taking place in Chad now, there could be a military coup where they will kill another president, and they have the president who is a puppet to take over that oil reserves so that they drill it themselves. Look at Libya. As much as we are haggling today, the conflict in Libya is purely oil. Look at it. There were no smoking guns. Where are they? There is no nuclear. They said Gaddafi had nuclear weapons. But where are they? Nobody has shown us these nuclear weapons. They killed Gaddafi because they wanted to draw oil and take oil illegally. In Benghazi, Russia, France, United Arab Emirates, Qatar are on one side, and Egypt. They are siphoning, selling out the huge amounts of crude oil, which is not documented in the Libyan books of trade. They are gaining out of the oil, Miriam. So when you look at this, these are some of the things that make us very worried as Christians and Muslims and the whole generation of the world. You come to our football, we still have the same problem. Eh? Our football has the same problem. We are given only six teams out of 42. Africa has got 54 countries, bigger than these countries. But our population is the one that watches. Look at everybody here in Africa now. By 9 o'clock, you can't find a person who is talking to you. People are fighting over remote control because they want to see a team, but we are not participants. Participants are very few. Senegal, Tunisia, Morocco, Nigeria, Ghana. Is it Ghana? Not Nigeria this time, Ghana. The whole of Southern Africa, East and Central Southern Africa, we have nothing. Cameroon, I don't count Cameroon as a team of a seriousness Although it plays very good football, it has a very bad dictator who's killing people at home. Again, what is the killing in Cameroon? Oil. They don't want to give up that part of Amazonia which has got oil. If you look at the map of the southern part of Cameroon, it's where the oil reserves and the blocks are. So they don't want to give up. It's a source of war. So for me, I believe, and I say one day, and I say again, until we, in any country on African continent that discovers oil, you are discovering a death penalty for your own people. God, they will come. I'm not going to speak like a courier over the question of death penalty. Oil has become a death penalty. Yes, that's the over.
Dr. You know, the funny thing is, if we compare ourselves to the Arab countries where they have oil, what they had is just oil. Okay, but what do we, Africa, have? We have been blessed. We have the land. We can do the farming. We have the other natural resources that are enabling this computer and these devices that we are using. We have, it doesn't matter. You name whatever kind of natural resource, you find it in Africa, from diamonds to gypsum. You know, if I can take the highest and the lowest kind of stone, from diamonds to gypsums, we have lands that are fertile that we can grow food in. Even the food that we are growing, we are told to only grow. We are not growing food for our consumption. We are growing food for as cash crops to sell. And how do these Arab countries that are on a desert, only having oil, manage in few years to develop their country as much as they have, buy most of the properties in the West, have most of the biggest companies in the West in their control, and Africa cannot do this? This is very sad.
Very well. Doc?
Omar, you are very right. You have added on a point which is very crucial. And Miriam, I think you had the point because I was disrupted by the phone. Her point, it is the same story. We have the same story. We have difficulties. The war in Congo, the war in anywhere. We are in Kenya. You people, you are drawing oil from Turkana. It won't be long before the Turkana are told that this is your oil. In Uganda, we already have a problem at the moment as we speak. Even the people where the oil was found, they are very upset that their livelihood have changed. They have been removed from their original homes. People are bringing all types of excuses. So oil still remains a curse, and oil remains the curse that brings in conflicts on the continent. Nazi, what was the point that you made?
The point that I made was, Africa, if we talk about the oil, let's leave the oil aside. There's Arab countries that have managed to be a multi-billion industries and work with multi-billion industries, and they have managed to get their people from the basic need to the maximum need that a human being needs, whether it's education, whether it's living standard. They've uplifted everything. And this, remember, all they had is oil. They're a desert. But Africa, if we leave the oil aside, we are blessed by the land.
That was the point, yes.
We are blessed by we are blessed by the land. We can grow food to feed the whole world. We have, from the most expensive stone that is found on earth, and to the cheapest one that I would say, from diamond to gypsum, is found in Africa. And forget about what is in between that. all these materials that are working on the new technology today that are making your phone and your computers work are all found in Africa. So what is it that Africa is doing wrong? If this desert could develop that much just because they have oil, why is Africa not being able to even tap on their ground? Who is stopping us from farming? Who's stopping us from doing what Ghana has realized and started doing in regards to their cocoa and said, hey, no, enough is enough? Why are we not focusing on that and we allow the East-West to start to make us the grass that the elephants are fighting on all the time? It's actually very sad.
It is sad indeed. We cannot even be allowed to grow the crops apart from oil. Africa cannot. For example, how can you grow crops in Congo? The war is now. We have found. Have you seen these commanders of M23 now looking like a chicken that has fallen in water? Because every leader, those who brought them up, who helped them, say, no, you have to surrender. Yeah. I don't want to know.
And we want to, and I think what people have been, the conversations that I've been seeing online, people want to see where they will retreat back to, where they will go after they have surrendered. To where? Will
Not they
to where will they go to?
Go back is answer. They will go back to camp. They will go back to place where to go.
But they'll go from where? Where are they coming from, Doc? Okay. We seem to be having a bit of
the problem is that where are they coming from? Where had they gone?
Yes, where will they retreat back
to?
No,
I'm saying...
Yeah.
Yes, but
so we are waiting
no,
to
where
see.
will they retreat? But where are they coming from?
Yeah.
That's another...
So they have to go back
rebels,
where?
Rebels are in... Where are they coming from? If they say they are going back, and you are telling them to disarm, then this arm... Where were they?
That's why the owner has to come clean. Doc, that's why the owner has to come clean so that he's able to receive them back. Because where will they go back to?
They will dissolve in they will dissolve in the thin air and they will no longer exist.
I'm just waiting to see the owner take ownership of, the mess.
I'm telling you, nobody is going to own this.
Right. So they'll stay in
Uganda last night sent 1,000 troops.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 1,000 troops. Has agreed to deploy 1,000 troops on a contingent to boost. But Uganda, as we speak, to be very frank, it is building roads, constructing hospitals, constructing shopping centers.
That was the agreement, yes. That really upset Rwanda.
You know, there's something in Nancy Omar and the Miriam which ashames me every day. Why don't we just come up and say we want to partition and rearrange Congo? I have been suggesting this thing for a long time. Rearrangement of Congo would be the best way to stabilize this whole country. And then the major Congo that remains can earn taxes from this rearranged Congo.
If that is the only way to get peace and stability, yes. But then for me, it's the same issue that is, if I could look at the issues on Somalia and Somaliland. We know Somaliland has a stand on its own. It's been a separate entity. It's actually doing its own things, but then there is no recognition. And then there is a fuel being added onto the fire for that would not come to an end. If they wanted to see Somalia stable, at least one side of it has some sort of stability. It has no bombings and no Al-Shabaabs that are fighting in that side. then why not try and bring the two parties together and sort the issue of the separation? So it seems like, for me, the issue of Africa, unless the African leaders wake up, we've got more issues that when we talked about growing foods, let's leave oil. We've got issues of GMO, and nobody is talking about this. And today, if I want to send any kind of food to Europe, they will list all these kind of chemicals that my food has to be free from. It cannot have been sprayed with this or that or the other. But then here in Africa, we're being shoveled into our noses that we're being helped to grow food, but then being given GMOs, what we call fertilizers or seeds or whatever you want to call it, and being pushed into frontiering the GMOs at the moment, while they're the ones who are scaling down on it. In Europe, they actually do not, absolutely, European Union does not agree on GMOs. So this is the problem with Africa. I don't know, we are the world's guinea pigs, we are the world's test. We do not have any factory that produces weapons, but yet the most weapons you find it's in Africa. So yes, unless the African leaders wake up and say, okay, let's work together, as the leader of Zimbabwe said, as the leader of what's his name? If you would help me out.
The former leader. The
current leader, the current leader today spoke similarly as Nkrumah, who said that African leaders, we only meet when we are called into the summits, but we do not meet and talk about our issues together.
Oh, Nana Addo, yes, Nana Addo.
Also this. Yes, also the Rwandan president as well talked about along
Kagame.
Those lines. Yeah, Kagame talked about along those lines. Some of African countries will say, we've not been invited. Why do you need to be invited by anybody to talk about your own issue and your own destiny? And African leaders surely do not come together and discuss what their issues are before they go into the international platform. And this is what the problem is. So unless African leaders come together and say, what is the issue on this side, this region, and what's the issue in that region, and what's the issue of this region, and collectively come with a way and of putting their political differences aside, but looking at the interests of the whole of the Africa, I don't think we're going to get anywhere. And then I don't think the dream of one African nation, the Pan-Africanism dream, would ever come true unless Africa is united beyond political issues. We have to be united on humanitarian issues. We have to be united on things that are affecting Africans, development of Africa. But if we say Pan-Africanism is going to be achieved on the grounds of politics, I don't think that dream will ever come true.
Thank you very much. I think I buy your point of Pan-Africanism. The point that I'm buying here is we might never have it. We might never have Pan-Africanism, Miriam and Nazir Omar. The type of Pan-Africanism that was there that instilled us to liberate these countries is gone. It is gone. Today is pocket. Look at the leaders of Africa who are going to be called to go to US, or have been called, summoned to go to the United States of America. What are they going to talk there? What are they going to tell us in the United States of America? You know, are they not going for begging spree? But when you reach there, there is one country today that has accepted. Miriam, you read it on the paper today. Zimbabwe accepts 5.9 million dollars for its election. Now, with Zimbabwe, if there is a contestation on elections, we need to say, why are you asking us about good results? I'm asking Nancy and Omar. Zimbabwe has asked for 5.9. It has accepted 5.9 million dollars from European Union.
For the election.
Now, when they do elections and it is not in their conformity, it doesn't conform with their likings, they are going to make noise. They are going to say, how will you come out of it? We gave you the money. You wanted for a free and fair.
And this is why Africa is failing, to be quite honest. Yeah, and this is why Africa is failing, to be quite honest. Over reliance. We have become a race of dependence. Africans have become a race of dependence. Unless that mentality changes and we do not become the race of dependence, that is the only way we can sort our problems out. And remember, the problem of the solution for Africa and how the Africa is going to develop, it's not a secret. It's not hidden in some Asian ground and under an Asian stone. It's the same way that China found a way of developing. It's the same way the Americans did. It's the same way that the Europeans did. I don't know what is this magic answer that Africa is looking for. It's out there. We have to do what these people have done to get where they've got, to get where they are. But then the first thing Africa does, apart from being a culture, a race of dependence, is whatever we get, we do not put it back within Africa. From being sick, you run to outside Africa to get treated. The clothes we're wearing are produced by them. The cars we are driving are produced by them. And we are told we have to buy villas. We are told this is the way of living. For you to be happy, you have to have Gucci's and Versace's and all these things, which I do not produce. You do not produce. My sister does not produce. It's not coming from Africa. So how is Africa going to develop? We do not own our own economy. We do not produce anything that we consume. We are of a dependence. Africa has to stop the culture of being the race of dependence, period.
Whoa. It has to stop, but how will it stop when it does not even have the brains to make decisions which fit the right situation in Africa? That brings us to
Daktari, we have people like you, but you're brave enough that you are not silenced. But there are many more like you who are out there who can speak the truth, but most of them get to be silenced. But enough is enough. We're not being silenced anymore. There is a younger generation that have seen beyond that. You're not going to change my culture. You're not going to enforce your ways on me. And Africa has to stop the culture of being the race of dependence. We can see what Ghana has done about their cocos. We can see what Uganda is doing. We can see what the African leader dares to say in one of those meetings. So I think there is a little bit light that is coming, but then we need to empower those ones who are shading the light. We have to enhance their voices. We have to amplify their voices. And we have to be louder than the ones who are trying to shut it down. And that is the way we can get out of it.
Thank you very much, Nazi Omar from London. Thank you very much, Miriam from Nairobi. Before I hand you over the mic and the land, I want to make a takeaway. Today, most of the places on the continent of Africa and most of the countries in Africa have discovered oil, or they are discovered they have oil underneath. How much is available? Point of view, and looking at the point of view of the fact that every part of the world where oil has been discovered, especially the African continent, it has created a lot of pressure and the conflicts have sprung out of that. Take the question of Libya, for example. Libya was one of the most interesting and well-organized countries on the continent of Africa, with its free education, free economy, free everything. The commerce was flourishing. The country was stable. Today, Libya lies in ruins. The government broken down. The people. It looks like it was the oil that made Libya to go down. It looks like the oil that made Muammar Gaddafi to be killed, to be called names. After all, when you want to kill a dog, you call it bad names, and then you kill it. We have now discovered that there were no nuclear weapons that came to destroy Libya. And we keep on asking questions. How many of these type of tactics are going to be used on several African countries that go on finding their own resources and eating and generating, wanting to generate money out of the resources? The question of Democratic Republic of Congo in the Albertine region is also very interesting. There is oil in the Albertine region, and that oil has not been utilized. But when Albertine region becomes an oil-producing country, America comes in to say, no, you are killing the ecosystem. The question also in Uganda, the Uganda-Kenya, the Uganda-Tanzania pipeline. The Ugandans want to export their oil through the crude oil pipeline that will go to Tanga for refinery. But the people in the Commonwealth, in the European Union, are telling us and telling Ugandans that you can't touch the ecosystems. How can we doing what is supposed to be doing? We also ourselves elements of beggars, because from this topic I can tell we have become the begging bowl of the international community. Heads of state on 14th of December are trooping in America. What is it that they are going to say? How many of them are going to stand together and say, we want a Security Council seat, or we don't want to talk to you? How many of them are going to say, remove sanctions from some countries like Zimbabwe? How many? Very few. There might be none. All of them are going in there as people begging for money, which they bring and misuse. Is Africa, and therefore is the continent of Africa. Does it stand at the peril of disaster? Every time that we see conflicts mushrooming, we think of the resources. Are resources included in our conflicts that we see on the continent? I submit, therefore, it is true. Oil is one of the main causes of conflicts on the African continent. In the question of Somalia, for example, people don't want Somalia to be stable, but they want to keep it unstable in order not Somalia to drill its oil, its resources, export its minerals, was what they do to be. Yes, the answer is the oil that creates conflicts day in, day out. Thank you very much for listening to us. Frontline Security returns again next Tuesday. Thank you, our panelists, being there for us This is a very interesting subject. God bless you.